See, you want your kids to be safe drivers. You have to make sure that if you've never experienced that feeling of you have the clutch in and you're on that hill on La Cienega and Sunset, and you're like, if you know, you know, or you're in San Francisco, if you've never experienced that feeling, then you don't take driving seriously. That's a very important feeling for the nervous system to understand. Like, I could die right now, and I could kill other people. And so, but then, if you just have the self-driving car, this is my whole thing with the GPS. Somebody just interviewed me this morning on, the fashion stuff, and they asked me, why did I call Robotic Disaster? And my point is that classically, young culture, hip hop culture, street culture. The whole idea is that we're free. There's some sort of, kind of sovereignty and independence. That's some of the basis of street culture, and certainly the hip hop culture and other aspects of street culture, art, art movements, and that kind of thing. But you're not free until your mind's free. So if you're not training the mind in a certain way, you have no freedom. And so the true kind of freedom that is what kind of street culture grew out of is the freedom of the mind. There's this Rinpoche that we were talking to, who'd been in Chinese prison for 21 years, and he said, when commenting about that experience, he said, it was the freest I ever had been because of the freedom I found in my mind. So, but you have to cultivate that, because if not, you're driving, you're not training the mind-body system to be alert enough. This is why we're doing the intelligence meditation, to be alert enough to know what the stakes are and how the sequence creates the consequence. But we're doing our children a disservice. And some artist just did a big thing on the GPS consciousness. He didn't call it that, but somebody sent it to me, where basically he took 99 smartphones, and he had them, he had them somehow, I guess, up, giving a message to the GPS satellite that the road was, there was traffic on the road. So if you looked at the GPS, there was, fully red when it was completely clear. But he used 99 phones, and he took it like in a wagon down a street so that it would basically keep, he wanted to see as like a social experiment if people would still drive on the road. And there was, not a car on the road. But it's my opinion that that's basically what they're doing all the time. The GPS consciousness is moving you in the grid that they want. So they'll always put you on the highway, even though going in the inner streets would be faster. Why is that? Well, they're basically trying to create a certain type of kind of way. All the way that you move through time and space is how the mind is trained. That's why we do all these kind of odd movements in Kundalini Yoga, because you're disrupting some of the patterns of the robotic. So, I was telling this reporter this morning, if you don't train your mind, you become a robotic disaster. If you don't train your mind, if you don't have sovereignty over your mind, you become a robot. That's why I called it robotic disaster. People are so confused, I don't know why. But if you don't train it, so you have to kind of, this is all of what we do in here. This intelligence meditation is like, since when did you sit around, doing this for 11 minutes? So you're doing something that's basically disrupting the patterns of the neurons. And you have to do that if you want to keep the mind fresh and the mind clear and the mind alert. You have to do that. You have to do things that are not the normal kind of things that you do every day. You have to think things that aren't the normal things that you think every day. And then we get into the conversation around relationship. These people that we see every day or we deal with every day. There's just basically all of your relationships are some sort of archived pattern that is actually not even the person in front of you. It's mom, dad, and the like, that you're just running through every single interaction you have with every person. And then we wonder why our relationships don't work. Because that's, that pattern usually is not very fruitful, or it's not very constructive. So we're just running. So, you want to have a better relationship with your children, with your lovers, with the people who work with you, or whatever your relationships are. you have to have an alert and clear mind so that you can actually relate with the person in front of you in this moment, whoever they are, directly, which could be who you don't know who they are because you don't even know who you are. So you want to have a long-term, incredibly passionate relationship. Well, you wake up and you just wonder, well, I don't know who I am, so I'm going to sit my ass down and do a little meditation. And I don't know who this person is, so I'm going to come to them fresh and wonder, with curiosity and awe of who is this person. So that relates to how you touch them, that relates to how you look at them, that relates to how you interact with them. This could be the last moment you ever see them. How would you want to be with them? But in order to have the vigor of that is vigorous to relate to your environments and the people in your life this way. In order to have that, you have to have a certain kind of mind and body training, which is everything that we're doing in here. And you have to break up these kind of really calcified patterns of the way that you think and the way that you do think, the habit patterns, the thought patterns, so that you can actually have a direct kind of moment of relay. If you had one of those a day with your most intimate relationships, you would have fulfilling relationships. Just one moment where the clouds of your own kind of disappointment and abandonment issues and destructiveness and pain and, projection of the mother and the father issues, if you just had one moment of actually relating to the person directly a day, you would have a fulfilling relationship. So it only takes that. I mean, the vigor, I remember back in when tantric sex was starting to be talked about in the media, and it was like Sting, 9 hours. That was the vibe. It was like Sting does tantric sex, 9 hours. I was actually with a teacher who Sting and the wife was going to, because they had marital problems, because I don't know why. I mean, you'd think 9 hours, everything is going to be fine. But they had some marital problems. None of this kind of outside in. It's not about the 9 hour sex. It's not about the rose petals. It's not about these ideas that we have about kind of Tantra and what that would actually look like. The whole basis of Tantra, every single aspect of Tantra, however you want to, we practice a certain frequency of tantric teachings here, but there's 3 different kind of schools of tantric teachings on the planet. We practice the kind of white tantric teachings, then there's the red tantra, and then there's the black tantra. And so whatever tantra you're talking about, the basis of the teaching is, do I have enough vigor and vitality and clarity in my system to show up to whatever is happening and be able to relate to it in a direct way? Whether I've seen that, whether I've been dealing with this person for however many years, or if I just met them right now. And a lot of people in their dating life, I like this I've talked about this Portlandia sketch because I thought it was hilarious. That the woman's like, okay, I'm going to meet somebody, one of the women on the show, and so she puts up an online profile. And then it becomes like such a full-time job that she has to hire a couple of the other people. So they've basically created like a tech headquarters of her online dating life. And she's like, okay, you're going to deal with the dick pics. You're going to deal with the people who want like real relationship, and you deal with the spam. Like, they're putting up, the different kind of categories of who's going to deal with what. They have to hire an intern. So there's like this kind of 20-year-old like IT guy who's like running the thing. So it's this whole operation that this woman, she's just trying to date, online. And the young IT kid keeps on like, there keeps on being these kind of like scenes where he's like, well, I was wondering, I actually would like to take you out to coffee. And she's like, what happened with that last message? Did you get back? She like totally doesn't even connect. Like the guy's right in front of her and he's trying to take her out, and the whole time, like the whole like scene, and they're so obsessed with, these, but that's it's very real, actually. And so a lot of times in our dating life, if you want relationship, we're focused right now is relationship, this next kind of period. If you want a relationship, a lot of times all these kind of patterns and calcifications are keeping you from actually paying attention to what's happening, and also paying attention to your projection, the frequency you're putting out, because that frequency is the moment you put out the right frequency, which takes very little. it's very magnetic, and so you'll have more than you can handle, basically, and it has nothing to do with where you live. Everybody thinking, oh, well, here there isn't anybody who, I always say I kind of like there's some interesting markets for dating outside of the weirdo urban areas for sure. But anytime I'm like, yeah, I was in Detroit, and like everybody was like opening doors. There was like a Midwestern vibe that I thought was very nice, and I was telling some single people that, and they're like, oh no, they're all married. Everybody has the story of, in LA and in Venice, it's like, no, they're all divorcees and they're dating 18-and-a-half-year-olds. It's like everybody has a story, but it has nothing to do with your location. It has nothing to do with what you look like. It has nothing to do with your chronology. It has to do with the frequency of the projection that you're putting out, and whether that is actually in resonance with your true kind of, we'll call it conscious desire. But we know that we've been here long enough to know that that's not particularly what we're creating. We're creating our subconscious desires. Today, we're going to do an intelligence meditation, and then we're going to deal with all your split personalities, because it's Wednesday. And I just thought, it's a good thing to do. Hump day, you know what I mean? So let's just do it. So you have all these split personalities, and the split personalities are they're one wants one thing and one wants another thing, and you're confused because of it. Because one, Yogi Bhajan, you have about 27 of these things if you consider yourself sane. If you've stepped over the sanity line, which almost 80% of the population has, so you may be 1 foot into the not quite as sane as you used to be arena, and that's you're in good company out there. Just turn on the television. Wow, this is a really exciting time to be on the planet. But so then you have about 28 to 90 personalities, and each one of those split personalities wants a different thing. And so we wonder why we're not happy, because there's a lot, and there's usually some dominant personalities that are running the show. And what we're interested in is we're not interested in your personality, but we're interested in your elementary, most integral, basic personality. And by basic, I don't mean in the way that the millennials use it. The most kind of nucleus core of you, which we call your elemental personality. We're interested in that part of you before you got conditioned by the culture, before you got conditioned by the parents and all that kind of stuff. There's a core. So we're not interested in you not having a personality, which I spoke of yesterday, which is the kind of bland, neutral, new age dating. Have you seen some of these new age dating apps and stuff? Does anybody know about them? I'm so curious. Seems like a real shit show, but I'm curious. But it seems like it could be real. But there's a lot of ideas about, kind of spiritual dating, or even in post kind of third wave of feminism. I'm equal, you're equal. You're bringing this to the table, I'm bringing this to the table. I was here. Some guy was telling me that he went out. The girl was this. He's a guy here, he's a Rama guy. He went out with a girl from a dating app, or maybe a blind date of one sort or another. And I think it was the second date. And she was trying to pull the I'm going to pay for half thing. Or maybe I think it was I'm going to pay for half. And he was like, no, let me take you out to dinner. And she kind of fought with him. And then she ended up going, okay, if you really want to. I said, that was you lost. You were being tested and you failed. But he's been programmed by this kind of post third wave of feminism. You're equal, I'm equal, we'll go Dutch. Nobody who's kind of coming to an occasion like that you're not going to end up having a polarity experience. And what I mean by that is there's no friction. If I'm paying for half and you're paying for half and I'm equal and we are equal, but in terms of the actually creating a frequency of polarity or of attraction, it just kind of zeroes the thing out. And so we have a lot of ideas of that aspect of kind of bland neutrality, or we're spiritual, so that's how we're going to date. That's not going to get you what you want either. So we're not interested in you becoming personality-less. We're interested in your most basic and most interesting nucleus of personality, which is called your elemental personality, really where you are the most you. And we don't know. We have no idea. That's why we're cultivating our kind of inner practices. Is we don't know what that is. So you could be with someone for. I just talked to somebody yesterday. She's been married for 42 years. I always just so impressed. Happy marriage, 42 years. So you're 42 years and one day into that relationship. You have no idea who this person is. And in order to be able to actually date like that or to live like that, you need the deprogramming of decalcifying all of these patterns so that we're not just constantly on zombie autopilot. And I taught that thing on Monday that Yogi, but he gave a bunch of stuff like this where he said, if you do this exercise, you can't be a zombie. It de-zombies you. So it takes you out of that robotic disaster kind of, we call it the Piscean trance. So, you're just tranced out into some kind of split personality agenda, and then you're not getting what you want, and then you're unhappy, and then, the thing just keeps going like this on planet Earth, because we can't do anything if it's a bunch of dissatisfied, unhappy, immature, kind of fighting little children here on the planet, which is the history of planet Earth so far. So we'd like to change that. We'd like to we got to get past that, but that requires a certain type of vitality. So we're going to work on that. We're going to work a little bit on your split personalities this morning, because your split personalities, one of them wants something and the other one wants another thing, and you're all confused about it, and you don't know why. You're not attracted to that person, but that person's like nice and actually could offer, is trying to love you and all this kind of stuff. It's because you have split personalities. You have split personality disorder, basically. And in order to integrate those personalities, you have to have the kind of sovereignty of the programming of your program, which is everything we're doing in here. You become the programming of the program, the programmer of the program, instead of, just a one of the little chess pieces in the game. Okay, so we're going to do this very powerful meditation for your split personalities. And if you find that you have this kind of thing going on, if you're conscious of it, where one moment, 27 personalities can be worked with pretty well. You can actually make art out of it. So in the morning, you're needy. In the night, you don't need anybody. In the afternoon, you're, I don't know. You can make art out of this thing, and you can actually be an interesting person because of it, if you're conscious of it and you're using it for constructive. You become an interesting human because you're complex. So there's nothing wrong with the different kind of parts of you, but you become the kind of nucleus awareness of those different parts, so you can use them and make art out of them. And then, somebody goes out on a date with somebody like that. That's an interesting person. They're not just, they're not basic, as they say. That's an interesting person who has command over some of these different aspects of themselves. And that's fascinating. That's very magnetic to have that kind of command over the different aspects of you. What's not attractive is that you have, feed me Seymour here, you have, psycho bitch over here, you have a needy fetal position over here, and then it's like, angry blamer here, and then, then you're just a mess. And the people in your life who are either have tried to be in your life or you're, trying to get them in your life, they can feel that. And they're trying to figure out basically whether they're conscious of it or not. Are you worth dealing with? No relationship is unconditional love. None. Is a complete New Age farce. Do not try to you do not. So the people in your life are trying to figure out, am I going to stay in this marriage? Is this person worth dealing with? Am I getting enough of my own needs met? And am I having enough kind of exchange or relay? And the same thing with somebody who you're sitting on a date with. They're limbically, whether they're conscious of it or not, deciding, is this person, that whatever their drama and trauma is it not going to be so depleting and irritating that I want to go on a second date with them? Unconditional love. And if you're real smart about relationships, you're very clear about what you want and what they want. And then you have a really good relationship. Hadijivan's going to talk more about this. You know what you want in the relationship, and you know what they want. Well, if you're on a date, you have about 9 seconds to figure it out, because that's how intuitive and smart we are. What does this person want to have a bigger experience of? And so you can kind of define that really quickly. So we're going to be working with all of this stuff. But first and foremost, you have to work with our split personalities, because that stuff's running amok and you're like a freak and you're not in command of the thing. And people, you're basically, your projection is, I'm too much of a pain in the ass to deal with on some level. And that's why you're not getting what you want. That's why you're not getting the promotion. That's not what that's basically, on some level, that's the heat-seeking kind of missile that you're sending out into the frequency of the scene, is that I'm going to really use all of your resources of time, money, and energy, and you're not going to get anything back. The return on investment is not high. Okay? And the good relationships, or the when you're getting what you want in a relationship, the return on investment is high on both ends, and so there's something we call relay. There's an exchange. Good? And just, women who are into men don't want to leave relationships. It actually takes them way more to leave relationships than women, but you push them so far that they cannot make logical sense in a male psyche that the return on investment is worth their time anymore. Sorry about that. Okay, popular teaching. Okay, we'll just deal with these split personalities. We'll just deal with these personalities. And the same way, if you leave somebody, that's the reason you're leaving them. That's the whole, that's basically why. It's not because you grew apart. That's a bunch of bullshit. Nobody grows apart. Because all relationship is a maintenance, right? So, okay, so we'll do this intelligence meditation. We'll do a little yoga for your mental health. This is for your mental health, because people are wacky out there. And then we're going to work on our split personalities. So we'll get the mental health kind of balanced and then go into these split personalities. And if you find yourself kind of all over the place and there's all these different parts of you and they're not talking, and you feel like one part of you wants one thing and another part of you wants another thing, and it's creating destructive behavior and destructive energy in your life, you should do this meditation that I'm teaching you today, okay? Thanks so much for listening to another lecture on reality riffing. These are conversations and topics that I think are very important to discuss. If you enjoyed, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and share with your friends and your family. If you also want to continue to listen, bigger lectures and classes and other experiences are available on gurujagat.com.